Are you a hardworking business owner striving for success online? There is help. Welcome to the School of Internet Marketing podcast, featuring candid conversations and inspiring stories of online success. Now here's your host.
Yes, it's James Martell here, the founder of the School of Internet Marketing, and today I'm your host, and I'll be talking with Ivan Ho from OMT Wired Up about Spreaker and using the Spreaker broadcasting platform for podcasting and to just generally put together an audio show. And I think you'll find to those listeners who have never done a podcast that with just a little bit of pre-planning, a little bit of work, and a little bit of roll up your sleeves and just kind of figure it out, that it really isn't that complicated. In fact, we're actually doing a live podcast right now, and I've kind of put Ivan on the spot. But it looks pretty slick, doesn't it, Ivan?
Yeah, it does. Especially, it doesn't look as complicated as I had thought.
I would think from the time you and I started to talk about bringing, just to do a quick demo for you, and you can actually see the Spreaker console in front of us, where what we're looking at here is basically the Spreaker podcasting and broadcasting control panel. And with Ivan and his partner Jimmy, they're putting together a show called OMT Wired Up. And tell us what your plans are for your show.
OMT Wired Up stands for Online Money Talks. And we've been in online marketing for about 2 or 3 years, and we thought we'd share some of our experience, the highs and the lows, and all the things that we had to navigate through in order to get to our position, to get to where we are today.
I do know you have an office. I believe you're based out of Richmond, British Columbia?
Yes, that's correct.
And you and I have had a chance, we met up at one of the Internet Mastermind meetings down in Vancouver, which is probably one of the best meetups around, definitely in the city, but probably in general. I know Matt has done just a fabulous job of organizing a weekly session downtown on Monday nights where he'll have 50, 60, 70 people show up. I've had a chance to speak there a couple of times, and I know lots of people have sat through many presentations down there. How long have you known those guys down at it's Matt and who is it? Matt and Franco?
Matt and Franco, I believe. That's correct.
And they, how often have you been down there? Just a few times, or have you been down there multiple times?
We've been there for a bit. We've actually been there since the beginning of last year. And we've actually attended quite a bit of their meetups on Mondays.
Let's talk. Let's get back to your podcast and some of the concerns that you may have. I know you're plowing right into it, which is awesome. I do know some people get basically stuck. They never really kind of get out of the gate. There is a lot of moving parts to it. There's no question about it. I do know you're going to be using the Spreaker system, and right, that you've ordered your graphics, I believe.
That's correct.
And you're using Elance to get the graphic designers involved. What's the biggest challenge that you're finding with getting everything organized?
The biggest challenge right now is for us. Well, for us is coming up with the topics for the what we talk about, how to maybe set things up and to really talk or to broadcast ourselves, because we're not really people that actually are very comfortable in front of the camera or in front of the microphone. So this will be definitely the first time that we're going to be doing this. So that's kind of like uncharted water. So, but for the setup part, I think everything else seems to be okay. I think the challenge really is to put things in details and to schedule, have a game plan into doing things on a daily basis so that everything gets done. Because if not, then things get piled up quite quick.
Yeah, I can so relate to that. One of the things that I do know with podcasting that I love about it is it really is it gives you the creative end of it. And the nice thing about the technology these days compared to early on when I started podcasting, things are so much simpler now, so you can really spend a lot more time focusing on what you're going to cover. And I do know we had a conversation just before we got on the show here that one of the things you're challenged with, or thinking you might be having some challenges with, is figuring out what topics you're going to cover and how to stay interesting to guests ongoing. And
Right.
I think the way to do that is just to be very organized up front. Try to pull all your show notes together. I think we can all hear the podcasts out there that they're just kind of thrown together and there's no real thought put into them. And
Right.
I know in your particular case, you guys have a wealth of knowledge. You've been in the internet marketing space for a pretty good period of time here. You've made, as I have, lots and lots of mistakes. You've had some successes. And I think listeners will benefit greatly from hearing from failures, because I do know failures and mistakes are what we learn from. And I do know on these types of shows that if we can share some of the ups and the downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's not always... I love seeing some of these growth curves in businesses where it looks like everything's always going up and there's never a valley and it never dips. And in reality, of course, like any business, everybody's got ups and downs. Everything is seasonal. Everybody's trying to, get to that next level. And, what's your experience been with that?
In terms of,
I would say in terms of just general business online, because a lot of listeners to the School of Internet Marketing, they're interested in bringing their businesses online, and
Right.
sometimes it's a little intimidating, sometimes it's a little bit difficult, sometimes you make a lot of mistakes, and it
Right.
seems overwhelming. And I know you guys, you got started, and you've told me some of your successes, and you've also told me some of your challenges.
Right. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is the mindset. I think, like most people, think that, assume potentially that it's not difficult to maybe put things together online until they really dive in. And once they do, there's actually a lot of things that needs to be learned or have knowledge about in order to have success at the beginning stages. I think a lot of people fail without that type of preparation.
I noticed that one of the things that was said on was the Beatles. What was it they called? The Anthology or the Beatles? There's basically a 10-hour show put together over a 5-year period talking about the Beatles. And we all look at the Beatles as this huge success story. And of course, they become one of the greatest bands of all time. And the Beatles, the four of them, are just world famous. The two of them that are still around, and they all seem to be really nice people as well. And the interesting thing about the Anthology was they talked about early on how these guys, they had challenges, big challenges too. It wasn't always rosy. They had their ups, their downs. But the interesting thing about them was they were goal setters. They were goal setters in the early 60s. They had some real plans to make it big. And I think, with this whole idea in mind of working online and bringing businesses online, and, the world is changing for small businesses where they may have been at one point relying on more of the traditional forms of advertising, whether it be newspaper or yellow pages, where today it's much more in the area of online, because that's quite frankly where the people have gone, into the online world. That goal setting, even with the Beatles back then, was so important. And today, being small businesses, with the transition from the more of the older ways to the newer ways, I think goal setting is also a great topic. And in your particular case, I know one of your goals is to get a podcast online. And a podcast, in my experience, has been just an absolutely fabulous way to build an audience, to build... How many times have you heard, Ivan, if I could put you on the spot, the money is in the list?
Oh, too many times to count, actually.
And the reality of it is, it's true. But typically what they're talking about when they're saying the money is in the list is they're talking about an email list. And an email list is very important. I'm not putting that aside at all. It's very important. But to me, and our experience has been, the best way to get started, first off, is to develop a podcast and build an audience. And if you've got an audience that trusts you and can get to know you, and it's surprising how many businesses who may not be thinking about creating their own podcast may want to consider doing so, because I know a lot of times the knee-jerk reaction is to say, hey, I don't know how to do that, or podcasting isn't going to fit my business. Whereas if you're looking to build an email list or an audience or both, podcasting is absolutely just a tremendous way to do that. So back to the topic of goal setting, as we go into 2013 here, for all of us, myself included, and Ivan and Jimmy, who's in the background with Ivan there as partner, and for those listeners who are looking for new ways to basically build an audience and build an email list and bring more customers through the doors, whether it be a brick and mortar business or maybe a services business or a professional business such as a chiropractor or a lawyer, an accountant, somebody who's looking to build up more clients. Podcasting is a great way to go because, and I think, Ivan, you guys have really kind of clued into it. You've clearly planted your flag that you're well into the setup period now. That it's just a fabulous way to build an audience.
I agree.
What would you say now with your show? Let's get back to OMT Wired Up a little bit, and
yeah.
let's kind of bat around. I know working with you, you've talked about you've got your graphics are now being designed, and you've got a graphics package being created that's going to help you brand yourself in Facebook and in Google Plus and on the Spreaker 360.com website, where you've got a nice little cover art image there. You've got that well underway, and you were saying that should be along any time.
Right.
You're also having an intro and an outro created.
Yes, we just actually finished that up a couple of days ago. And we outsourced that, and it's being recorded as we speak.
And I'm a big fan. I do know a lot of people develop podcasts and they don't go to that extra step. I actually love to hear it. We're going to close out in the school here in just a few minutes, and you'll hear the outro, what we call the outro to the school, which is the music and the little promo piece at the end. And one thing I think listeners may be a little bit surprised is when you hear the intro, it's a professional voice talent. We wrote the little script. We created the we didn't create the audio. We went and sourced out the audio and we purchased the audio, and then we hired ourselves a voice talent to come along and do the read, and then they also mixed in the music, and they give it that real professional sound and feel, and I personally love it. I'm looking forward to hearing yours. I know that you have that being created as well, so that'll be great to hear your first show. Let me ask you guys, let me put you on the spot again. How nervous are you about recording your first show?
Scale of 1 to 10, probably like 11.
There you go. I remember my very first show was recorded just, if I go back 2 weeks ago plus 10 years, we recorded the first one in Maui. And it was hilarious because I remember the host interviewing me. He's still a good friend of mine today. I've known him for 20 plus years. He'd ask me a question, and we were in a little hotel in Lahaina, and all connected up through the phone because you couldn't do this over the internet back then. The bandwidth just wasn't there, so we had to do it all through the phone. And he'd ask me a question. So, James, how's Hawaii? And instead of me giving him a real answer, I'd say, oh, it's wonderful. Then he'd have to ask another question. So what's your plan for the day? I think we're going to head down to the beach. And I was extremely nervous as well. In fact, I must say, even a lot of times, even today, I don't know if I'm not nearly as nervous as I once was, but I think people being nervous is probably just a part of human nature. And I know you guys are going to do great. I really look forward to hearing your first show. So if I could just offer you up some encouragement, just to what do they say? Put those butterflies that you're feeling in your stomach, get them flying in formation, I think the saying goes, and then off you go. So all the best to OMT Wired Up. We really look forward to hearing your first show. And if you don't mind, maybe after you've put together 5 or 6 shows, if you wouldn't mind joining us back here at the school to hear how it went, we'd love to chat with you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, James.
You betcha. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next edition.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about the School of Internet Marketing and to get access to all exclusive courses and interviews, visit theschoolofinternetmarketing.com. That's www.theschoolofinternetmarketing.com.